Our today's topic is minorities under the Constitution of Pakistan. Minorities are basically the culturally, ethnically, religiously, or racially distinct group that coexist with but is subordinate to a more dominant group. As the term is used in the social sciences, this subordinacy is the chief defining characteristic of a minority group. As such, minority status does not necessarily correlate to population. In some cases, one or more so-called minority groups may have a population many times the size of the dominating group, as was the case in South Africa under apartheid from 1950 to 1991. So, minorities, they enjoy all the rights available to all citizens of Pakistan. Keep one thing in mind when Constitution says that, and Constitution does not distinguish between the non-Muslims or the Muslims, or does not describe a particular segment of the society. It clearly addresses the the individuals who are residing in the state of Pakistan. So the human rights which are available in the Constitution of Pakistan, they are available to everyone without any discrimination of gender, religion, language, or so on. And human rights, they are the debatable issue of the recent age. People living around the globe demand their rights being human beings. The rights are facilities without which human beings cannot live a decent and peaceful life. And the concept of human rights was given by Islam during 7th century AD, while in the West it is related to Magna Carta, which was signed in England in 1215. Western scholars claim that the concept of human rights was given by the West, but the fact is that the last sermon of the Holy Prophet, which we discussed in detail previously, is the first charter of human rights. In the West, complete charter of human rights, like Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was passed by the General Assembly. In the recent times, Constitution of almost all the democratic states guarantee human rights, but unfortunately minority rights have not been mentioned clearly. And Pakistan is a democratic state where all the citizens have been guaranteed all the fundamental rights, irrespective of their caste, color, creed, or religion. And here in this particular lecture, we will analyze and elaborate the Western concept of human right and the Islamic concept of human right, minority rights in Islam, as well as rights of minorities under Constitution of Pakistan. If you do, people do remember, we learned about the last sermon of the Prophet, and in which many rights were discussed, and the Holy Prophet directed the believers to follow them. Rights are guaranteed by constitutions of all the modern democratic states of the world. Right after the resolution passed by the General Assembly, और जिसको बाद में हमने यूनाइटेड नेशन ह्यूमन राइट्स डिक्लेरेशन कहा, so then That was a human rights charter, and a majority of the state they incorporated these human rights in the constitution. Unfortunately, minorities have been neglected. The rights of minorities have not been mentioned separately. That is why all minorities living wherever complain against discriminations, especially in developed part of the world, which known for its efforts in this regard. We have seen the BLM, Black Lives Matter, that people are still being discriminated on the basis of color in the most civilized nation like United States. The minorities they have been neglected, and the powerful people they exploit them, और डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड में भी उसके ऊपर कोई ख़ास मेहनत नहीं की गई कि इनके राइट्स को कैसे प्रोटेक्ट किया जाए. And if there is a law, it is not practiced or not applied. In Pakistan, several minorities residing in different parts, these minorities are guaranteed all their fundamental rights according to Islam. The Constitution of Pakistan guarantees freedom of religion to all the citizens of Pakistan, and the minorities are free to practice their religion as well as build their worship places. The Constitution of Pakistan it safeguards the rights, the fundamental rights of every citizen of Pakistan without any discrimination of religion. वो ये नहीं कहा गया कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कि these rights are available only to the Muslim because Pakistan is an ideological Muslim state. These rights are available to everyone. These minorities they can freely practice their religion, and even they can build their worship places. And the constitution, the legislature particularly, it is restricted not to make any law against these basic fundamental rights. So if any law is made against these fundamental rights, that will stand null and void. Minorities under Islam. Despite the widespread education, enlightenment, and constitutional guarantees in most of the states of the world, minorities are neglected and they have to face discrimination in every walk of life, as we see the BLM Black Lives Matter in United States. It's a recent phenomenon. Though it is considered that secular states guarantee protection to minorities, but practically the situation is not like that. India proclaims that it's a secular state, but what is happening with Muslims, we are very much aware of that. They are being targeted, they are being attacked, they are being killed, their properties are destroyed. And even in America and other developed countries, minorities are treated as second-class citizens. Dr. Hamidullah, a very famous Muslim scholar, says Islam has a very soft corner towards minorities living in an Islamic state. Islamic law guarantees and protects rights to life, property, honor, and liberty of conscience, religion, and all its citizens, Muslims and non-Muslims, without any type of discrimination. So Islam guarantees and safeguards the rights of all the minorities living in an Islamic state. Like we have seen in Surah Al-Hujurat. Have you remember or have you read it at your home? Because I suggested you and recommended you to read it with translation. And उसमें क्लियरली बहुत सारी चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो कि वो बेसिक फंडामेंटल राइट्स को बयान करती हैं. We'll see the propaganda in the West. The West In the West, much is being made against Islam about treatment of non-Muslims. It is claimed that non-Muslims are being discriminated on the basis of faith in religion. But if we study deeply the teachings of Islam about rights of minorities, this propaganda of West proves to be false. Islam has forbidden all types of distinctions and discriminations based on race, color, nationality, language, or caste. It brings people together purely on human grounds and at the same time grants them full freedom to practice the religion of their choice. As Quran says, La ikraha fi deen. There is no compulsion in religion. And it commands the Prophet of Islam to tell the non-believers that lakum deenukum waliya deen, that unto you your religion and unto me my religion. So Islam does not force anyone to enter in the circle of Islam. फोर्सफुली इस्लाम किसी को अपने अंदर या मुसलमान नहीं बनाता. ठीक है. वट एवर अराउंड द ग्लोब वी सी कि मुसलमान अपने किरदार से हमेशा अपने किरदार से मुसलमानों ने कोशिश की है कि वो अपने किरदार से लोगों को मुतासर करें और उनको इस्लाम में लेके आए और फोर्सफुली कहीं भी आप देख सकते हैं आज the only threat in Europe that the Islam is spreading very speedily. The reason is क्या फोर्सफुली लोगों को ये कहा जा रहा है कि इस्लाम में आ जाए? नो. द रीज़न इज़ कि इस्लाम के जो असल किरदार है वो इतना अट्रैक्टिव है कि लोग खुद ब खुद इस्लाम में मुसलमान होना चाहते हैं. बिकॉज इस्लाम इज़ अ रिलीजन ऑफ नेचर. जो इंसान की तबीयत है वो उसके मुताबिक है और वो इंसान की तबीयत से जो कि मुताबिकत रखता है इसलिए लोग उसमें ज़्यादा अमन और सुकून महसूस करते हैं और वो they want to be a part of Islam. The history of Islam. The first Islamic state, as we know, it was established by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in Medina. And the Misa-e-Medina, the Pact of Medina, it was known as the first constitution in the history of mankind. And that in that Pact of Medina, the Misa-e-Medina, it gave absolute religious freedom to all minorities. And the Holy Prophet assured that minorities would get equal opportunities to live their lives happily. Non-Muslims were even allowed to merge into Medina according to their own will. They were given political rights, and with respect to election of head of state, they had equal right to vote, even on his deathbed. So right to vote is basically, at that time it was known with बैत. तो ये जो है ये राइट ये इस्लाम ने ही सबसे पहले लोगों को दिया. And he directed his followers to provide full security to non-Muslims. In Islamic State, non-Muslims are not only treated with great tolerance but also given highest administrative position so that they might play their role for the development of the state. They are free to practice their religion and perform their religious obligations, build their worship places and educational institutions, so that their children might be educated according to their faith or creed. The Islamic State basically provides all human rights to minorities and safeguard those rights, and it made obligatory on the believers that they must protect and they must safeguard these human rights. When a Muslim practices Islam in true sense, so definitely he will not uh, deprive someone from life. He will not, you know, the one who uh, defame someone or damage someone. तो इस्लाम की बुनियादी तालीमात हैं वही इंसान को यही सिखाती हैं कि वो किसी दूसरे का कोई ज़रा भी नुकसान ना करे, बल्कि दिल दुखाना भी इस्लाम ने मना किया है कि किसी का दिल भी मत दुखाओ। तो यही काफ़ी है कि जब आप डेफिनेटली दिल कब दुखता है, जब आप किसी को कोई तकलीफ़ देते हैं। तो इस्लाम ने मना किया कि किसी भी तरह से कोई तकलीफ़ आप नहीं देनी, और इस्लाम ने एक उसूल दे दिया। उसूल ये दिया कि अहिब्बि लिन्नास मा तुहिब्बु लिनफ्सिक, कि लोगों के लिए वही पसंद करें जो आप अपने लिए पसंद करते हैं। तो ये एक प्रिंसिपल है। इस्लाम ने अपने फॉलोअर्स को सिखाया कि दूसरे लोगों के लिए भी वही पसंद करें जो आप अपने लिए करते हैं। तो इसलिए एक मुसलमान, एक ट्रू मुस्लिम, वो हमेशा दूसरे के राइट्स का रिगार्ड करता है, उनको ऑनर करता है और प्रोटेक्ट करता है। Minorities' rights in Pakistan. We discuss minorities' rights in Islam because Pakistan was established on the ideology of Islam, and most of the population in Pakistan is Muslim, and non-Muslim minorities are also present in Pakistan. So, and these minorities, they were anxious about their future because it was given them an option to stay in Pakistan or to move to India, the Hindu majority state, because the subcontinent was divided on the basis of religion. कि ये इस्लाम, मुसलमान वो अलग मुल्क चाहते हैं और हिंदू के साथ वो नहीं रह सकते. That was two nation theory, you know very well. So the people who preferred to stay in Pakistan, and they were not Muslims, so they were worried about their future. But Qaid-e-Azam, he was fully aware of the fact, the founding father of the nation, in his very first address to the Constituent Assembly on 11th August 1947, so special attention was given to the minorities in these words. He said that you are free, you are to go to your temples, you are free to go to your mosques or to any other places of worship in this state of Pakistan. You may belong to any religion or caste or creed. That has nothing to do with the business of the state. Like there won't be any kind of discrimination in the affairs of the state. So state will treat all the individuals, all the citizens equally. And he further said, we should keep that in front of us, our ideal, and you will find that in the course of time, Hindus would cease to be Hindus and Muslims would cease to be Muslims. Not in the religious sense, because that is the personal fate of each individual, but in political sense as citizens of state. So no one is gonna be forced to leave his religion. So in the end, the Muslim will stay Muslim, and the Hindus will cease to be Hindus. And this is gonna be their personal matter. Religion will be a personal matter, a private matter. But in political sense, they will be treated as an equal citizen in the state of Pakistan. Minorities rights in Pakistan, तो in the early history हम देख सकते हैं कि कायदे आज़म ने अपनी speeches में very clearly stated कि the minorities are free to practice their religion. And objective resolution जो कि एक foundation stone था for the future constitution of the country. It also included guarantee of fundamental rights for all the citizens of Pakistan, Muslim as well as non-Muslims. When we call a citizen of Pakistan, so it includes both. It has no discrimination. The citizens were guaranteed their fundamental rights under following provisions. These provisions were included in the objective resolution that were in the principles of democracy, freedom, equality, tolerance, and social justice, as initiated by Islam, shall be fully observed. So democracy, that politically the people, the citizen of the state, they must be inclusive of the system. The freedom, it must be ensured that people, they are enjoying the liberty or the freedom. There are a lot of freedoms available, we already discussed in the fundamental rights which are provided in the Constitution of Pakistan. I will discuss it later, but equality and equality before law and the equal application of law, the tolerance and social justice. These are the basic principles of Islam. You can say the basic pillars of Islam. And Islam always propagate social justice, and it will be fully observed. In objective resolution, it is clearly stated that wherein adequate provisions shall be made for the minorities to freely profess and practice their religion and devote their cultures. तो वो अपने कल्चर को प्रमोट करने के लिए, डेवलप करने के लिए अपने मज़हब को बड़े आज़ादी के साथ वो प्रोफेस कर सकते हैं, प्रैक्टिस कर सकते हैं. तो बेसिकली ये जो भी प्रिंसिपल सेट किए गए थे ना ऑब्जेक्टिव रेजोल्यूशन में, करारदाद मकासद में, वो बेसिक प्रिंसिपल से फाउंडेशन स्टोन थे कि आइंदा मुल्क कैसा होगा, मुल्क का आइन कैसा होगा. तो उसमें हमने कहा कि माइनॉरिटीज़ को खुली आज़ादी होगी, वो अपने मज़हब को आज़ादी से प्रैक्टिस कर सकते हैं, अपने कल्चर को डेवलप कर सकते हैं. And where adequate provisions shall be made to safeguard the legitimate interest of minorities and depressed and backward classes. So जो भी depressed backward classes होगी, जो भी minorities होगी, उनके interest को, legitimate interest को state safeguard करेगी, और it will be ensured through the law, through the constitutions. The Basic Principles Committee, which was made to bring some rules and some principles and for the future constitution of Pakistan. तो वो basic principle committee एक formulate की गई थी. तो उसकी जो committee थी, the committee was primarily divided into two sections. One was occupied with the formation of basic human rights, and the other section was looking into the rights and protection of the minorities in Pakistan. हम देख सकते हैं कि 1950 में जो द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली, उसने कुछ रिपोर्ट्स को अडॉप्ट किया जो उसकी बेटी ने डिवाइस की थी, and which was finalized in 1954 with following provisions. Number one, equality of all citizens before law without any discrimination. Equal protection of law of all citizens before law. No discrimination on the basis of religion, race, sex, or place of birth. The right to induction in the services of the state. The minorities got a right that they must be inducted in the services of the state. Freedom of speech, conscience, expression, association, profession, occupation, trade, or business. Every community would be allowed to provide religious instructions to the pupils of its own community, and personal law of every community was guaranteed. No person would be compelled to pay any special taxes for the propagation of any religion other than his own. No discrimination against any community in the matter of exemption from or concession in taxes granted with respect to religious institutions. No discrimination in admission to educational institutions. So these all rights are still available to every citizen of Pakistan. Let's see that the current constitution of Pakistan, what are the rights which provides to its citizens without any discrimination. It includes both the Muslims, the majority, and the minorities like Sikh, Hindus, and Christians, and so on. So number one is rights to equality. There are few rights: that equality before law and equal protection of law, and equality regarding accessibility to public places. Let all public places they are open for all without any discrimination, and safeguard against discrimination in services, that there will not be any discrimination in services. So whoever the criteria is set, so definitely that criteria must be followed, and the merit must be upheld. Then right to life and personal liberty, security of a person. All citizens they got a right to secure their life, that they cannot be deprived of life, and safeguard as to arrest and detention. No one can be arrested or detained. Right to fair trial, protection against retrospective punishment, and a law which was made later than the commitment uh, of crime, the occurrence of crime. So definitely the person cannot be punished for that, because at that time no law was applicable. So protection against double punishment is self-incrimination and inviolability of dignity of man. So these are basically the rights available to all individuals. Right to freedom, like you can freely move anywhere in the state. You can use the this right, like the freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of trade, business, the profession, and speech. Freedom to profess religion and to manage religious institutions. Safeguard against taxation for purpose of any particular religion. Like there is no taxation for any religion. So on the basis of religion, there is no taxation. Safeguard as to educational institutions in respect of religion. So all religion they can build up their educational institutions, and they will be safeguarded by the state. Rights to property: you can acquire, hold, or dispose of property in any part of Pakistan, and no person shall be compulsorily deprived of his property, save in accordance with law. Right to culture. So, the, the, this is the fundamental right that you can preserve all citizens. They can preserve their language, script, and culture. Social rights: that freedom from slavery and forced labor, right to education, right of individual to be dealt with in accordance with law, and protection of fundamental rights, and that is a, a clear notion that these fundamental rights are supernatural and supreme in nature, like any law that is inconsistent with our interrogation of fundamental rights will be void, will be null. And in conclusion, we can say that Pakistan came into being and in the name of Islam, and the propaganda which was made by its enemy about the future of non-Muslims. But the Muslims had bitter memories of past in their minds when they had been maltreated in the subcontinent by Hindu majority, when they were living together in united India. That's why the minorities in Pakistan were given all their fundamental rights in the constitution. Along with these constitutional guarantees of fundamental rights, practical steps were taken by the state and the society for the protection of these rights. Like there are certain uh, National Assembly, the representation of minorities was assured in National Assembly and Senate, and a quota has been allocated in the jobs, so in the services of the state. And the minorities are able to live their lives according to their religion and culture. So guarantee of fundamental rights proved very helpful for the progress of the country because minorities are playing a very vital role in the national progress. Their contribution in every walk of life is visible. The non-Muslim politicians, philosophers, lawyers, judges, bureaucrats, doctors, engineers, teachers, all are serving this sacred homeland only because they have freedom of religion, speech, association, thought, profession, etc. And that's all. If you have any question, you can ask, please.